Although Turnier would certainly prefer for people never to commit evil in the first place, that is an unattainable state in this fallen world. Here, the ironic response works best, for it never runs out of raw material. I have kept circling around the age-old questions why do bad things happen even to good people, because this isn't more than any other introduces confusion, and even a sense of betrayal to the goodness of God. How can we trust in a loving God who allows such bad things to happen? Are the many terrible things that happen on earth God's will? Why must God use an ironic style? Why not just prevent tragedy in the first place? The British Bishop Leslie Weatherhead makes helpful distinctions in the phrase the will of God. A sovereign God interacting with the free creation involves at least three kinds of wills, he says. First, there is God's intentional will. We know God intends for the future challenges of His Genesis, spell the world of perfect goodness, and Revelation ends with a similar landscape. God intends for human beings to be healthy and live with companions in present and abundant circumstances. Anything else, poverty, loneliness, hatred, pain, sickness, violence, hunger, goes against God's intentional for His creation. The fall, however, retains the rulers of the planet in order to give a decisive victory by the power of evil. Many bad things happen on earth. God must then have a circumstantial will that adapts to the evil conditions of earth. Its original goodness having been spoiled on this planet, God must instead decide what's good from bad. Many factors defy God's original plan, causing much grief. Did God will for Joseph, Daniel, Jeremiah, Paul, and others to murder in prison? Certainly not in the sense of His intentional will. Yet evil circumstances such as youngest brothers, political tyrants, and threatened religious leaders cause each of them to spend time in prison. Nevertheless, because each of them trusted God's plan went forward, despite the evil circumstances, albeit in very different ways. Joseph triumphed in Moses' power. Daniel experienced supernatural deliverance. Jeremiah left a lasting testimony as the weeping prophet, and Paul formulated the must reality behind bars. This last pattern, whatever it calls God's ultimate will. To those who trust Him, God promises to use any circumstances to serve His ultimate will. Nicholas Walterstorff, a Christian philosopher who lost his son Eric in a car accident, sought to bring the strands of God's will into some sort of alignment. How can we trust the radiance while struggling against what it brought about? He asked in his book, Name It, for his son. How do I receive my sufferings as blessing while we force the Egyptian fought that God circled the mountain to make me better? He filled his book with more questions and answers, and our limited point of view guarantees that we will always come away with unanswered questions. Walter Storff found a narrowness of trust by recognizing that to redeem our brokenness and lovelessness, the God who serves with us did not strike some mighty blow of power, but sent His beloved Son to suffer like us, through His suffering to redeem us from suffering evil. Indeed, instead of explaining our suffering, God shares it. God previewed in His own Son, the ultimate triumph of His ironic style of redemption. Our life is a short time of experience and expectation, a time of sadness and joy kisses of every moment. There is a holy sadness that pervades almost of our life. It seems that there is no such thing as a kick-up pure joy, but that even in the most happy moments of our existence, we sense a tinge of sadness. In every satisfaction there is an awareness of limitations. In every success there is the fear jealousy. Behind every smile there is a tear. In every embrace there is loneliness. In every friendship distance. And in all forms of light there is the knowledge of surrounding darkness. But in intimate experience, in which every life is touched by a bit of death can point us beyond the limits of our existence. It can do so by making us look forward in expectation to the day when our hearts will be filled with perfect joy, a joy that no one shall take away from us, every new one. In an image that harks back to my opening illustration of mountain climbing, Legend of Weatherhead proposed that we picture a stream running down side of a mountain. We can dam up that stream and prevent its flow toward the vapor law, but only temporarily. The law of gravity requires that water at high elevation will eventually make its way down. Similarly, God's ultimate will cannot be thwarted. Though human history wrongs evil, may place many blockages in the way. In the end, these will be overcome. God gets family back on the earth, restores something, resembling its original state. On this planet, for this time, God allows us to be put in harm's way. Buildings collapse, tectonic plates shift, viruses proliferate, evil people resort to violence. For what we know about the character of God, none of these things will be fed us intentional will. Nor if we believe God's promises to be fed us ultimate will. In the meantime, though, the time in which we spend all this on planet Earth, battles will inevitably happen. In creation, God works for matter. In redemption, He acts for personality, through ourselves. In the face of tragedy, I can respond out by blaming and turning aside or turning toward Him, trusting Him to fasten God out of bad. One option focuses on the past, close out the future. The other option opens the future, allowing artists to use whatever happens as well as turning for a new story. Different than it would have been without tragedy's failure, without the tragedy or failure, but in some ways even richer redeemed. Okay, we're gonna stop right here. From before the page, we're gonna stop right here.